Hello, welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Me. In the series Freemasonry and Satanism, got a new book here, number 77 in the series, The Montauk Project, Experiments in Time, Preston Nichols with Peter Moon, continuing on mind control. Time control, time travel experiments. Peter Moon, another character, Preston Nichols, electronic engineer technician. Look at that horse in the picture. Eerily similar to the one in front of the Denver airport. This should be an exciting bit of information. Just trying to find out what's going on with the secret technologies, black op programs, secrets the government's keeping from us, HARP systems, sky spraying, Gwen towers, ground wave, and so much more, computer programs, mesmerization, trance programs on TV, suggestion programs on billboards and newspapers, magazines, articles, and on and on and on, and lies from the government, New World Order, New Age, all controlled by the secret mystery school of Babylon characters, including the Zionists, Jesuits, Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Bilderberger Group, Bohemian Group, witchcraft people, Hollywood people, banksters, and other elites, kings and queens all over the planet who know something that we don't, and who are trying to bring about a new paradigm, reality. It might behoove us to wake up and ask what the heck is going on, which is what started me on this whole series and my whole investigation of reading books and collecting books, traveling places. Just a general investigation. Started out with a simple question. What the heck is up? What's going on? Who's responsible? Because as a businessman, my clients were all losing money. People were losing homes and everything from Argentina, United States, Canada, Germany, worldwide. I thought this was suspicious. Transferring a lot of the manufacturing facilities from the U.S. to China and other third world countries. Meanwhile, the homelessness was increasing in the United States. Just a lot of crazy things. Legislation being passed. We're all familiar with the crisis actors, terrorist situations, gun shootings, bombings in the United States, and thus they are increasing the police powers of the government, delivering microwave crowd control vehicles, spreading 30,000 drones around the United States, the government buying hollow point bullets, building FEMA camps, and so much more. Just outright insane, it seems. So I thought, continue on with this marathon of Peter Moon and the other characters involved in the Montauk Project at Camp Hero at the end of Long Island, and other places throughout the United States. Least we not forget about all the alien abductions, UFO books, Aleister Crowley, and even today with the satanic rituals, football halftime shows, Emmys and Grammys and Olympic openings, Lady Gaga, with the Shiva Kali, goddess of destruction, dances, Bohemian Grove, a gigantic owl called Moloch, with a fire in the belly, throwing in a baby, with our leaders there dressed in long robes, shipping in gay men. Something called the cremation of care. When you go look it up, Alex Jones videos Bohemian Grove, and you see the people who were there. Presidential people. Leaders, CEOs of large corporations from all over the world. What's going on? Trying to destroy Christianity, murdering and slaughtering the Arabs, trying to make Americans think that the Muslims are out to kill them, the enemy. Meanwhile, they're shipping them all over Europe and the United States. And as the Secretary General of the United States said, people who insult or say bad things about the Arabs will be prosecuted. So they're so-called wanting to send the enemy into our homes and our cities and towns, but we're not to say anything bad about it, or we'll be prosecuted. The same thing in Europe, Switzerland and countries, Germany. You can't say anything about the Zionist Jews taking over the world. It's a crime. All right, so much for that opening. This makes one think, what the heck is going on? So here we go. From the Oprah Winfrey Show of July 19th, 1991, Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell says, I do believe there is a lot more known about extraterrestrial investigation that is available to the public right now. Has been for a long time. Oprah, why do you think it's kept from the public? Edgar Mitchell, well, that's a long, long story. It goes back to World War II, when all that happened, and highly classified stuff. Read it yourself in this book. So Edgar Mitchell, one of the astronauts, says it's all highly classified where you and I are not allowed to know. Sky Books, the Montauk Project, go buy the book. I'm not trying to do an audio book. I'm going to read some highlighted sentences. The book has been dedicated to the memory of the crew of the USS Eldridge and to those who gave their life at Montauk. And apparently all those young boys that were abducted, pushed into the experimental time tunnels, vortexes, magnetic fields. Here's some of the contents. Philadelphia experiment, Montauk discovered. A visit to Montauk. Duncan arrives. A conspiracy revealed. Project Moonbeam. William Reach and the Phoenix Project. The Phoenix Project absorbs the Rainbow Project. And so much more. The Montauk Project begins. The Montauk Chair. Time warping, time travel, mission to Mars. Encounter with the Beast. The nature of time. The Montauk base is sealed. Montauk today, von Neumann arrive. A scientific analysis of the radio sound. William Reich. Mind control in the Persian Gulf War. Wow. Nikolai Tesla. History of the Philadelphia experiment with its reconciliation with the Montauk Project. Quantum levels of existence. Second page of the contents there. There is a mysterious and derelict Air Force base on the grounds at Old Fort Hero. Although it was officially decommissioned and abandoned by the U.S. Air Force in 1969, it was subsequently reopened and continued to operate without the sanction of the U.S. government. The entire financing for the base is also a mystery. No funding can be traced to the military or government. Officials of the U.S. government have probed for answers without success. So I'm reminded of the secret mystery school folks running the world, the Illuminati, the Zionists, Freemasons, and other groups, Club of Rome, Bilderbergers, Council of Foreign Relations, Heritage Foundation, and on, Knights of Columbus, Knights of Malta, the Vatican, the King, the Queens, and the other elites. A circle of insiders believe the Montauk Project was developed and culmination of the phenomenon encountered aboard the USS Eldridge in 1943. Popularly known as the Philadelphia experiment, the ship actually disappeared while the Navy conducted radar and visibility experiments. According to these accounts, over 3 decades of secret research and applied technology ensued. Experiments were conducted that included electronic mind surveillance and the control of distinct populations. It was at that point that the Montauk Project effectively ripped open a hole in space-time in 1943. It's right out of a Twilight Zone show here. Perhaps the person best qualified to tell the real story is Preston Nichols, an electrical engineer and inventor who has studied the Montauk Project for the better part of a decade. Despite brainwashing and threats to silence him, he has survived and has decided it is in the best interest of all to tell his story. Go buy the book. Give credit where credit is due here. Moving on, page 11, the guide to the reader. Any serious investigation will show that a Montauk Project did, in fact, exist. One can also find people who have been experimented on in some fashion or another. This book is not an attempt to prove anything. The purpose is to get the story told that is of essential interest to scientific researchers, metaphysicians, and citizens of planet Earth. Chapter 1, the Philadelphia Experiment. Some highlighted portions here. The Philadelphia Experiment was known as the Rainbow Project to those who manned and operated it. And lest we forget, the rainbow is the symbol for the New Age and the gay agenda. Just saying. The forerunner of today's stealth technology, the Rainbow Project was experimenting with a technique to make a ship invisible to enemy radar. While the objective was to simply make the ship undetectable by radar, it had a totally unexpected and drastic side effect. It made the ship invisible to the naked eye. Removed it from the space-time continuum, the ship suddenly reappeared in Norfolk, Virginia, hundreds of miles away. The project was a success from the material standpoint, but it was a drastic, catastrophic to the people involved. While the USS Eldridge moved from Philadelphia Naval Yard to Norfolk and back again, the crew found themselves in complete disorientation. Upon their return to the Philadelphia Naval Yard, some were planted in the bulkheads of the ship itself. Those who survived were in a mental state of disorientation and absolute horror. Dr. John Van Neumann, who headed the project, was now summoned to work on the Manhattan Project, the nuclear bomb. It continued on, culminating with a hole being ripped through the space-time at Montauk in 1983. Chapter 2. I had obtained a grant to study mental telepathy, says Preston Nichols, and to determine whether or not it existed. I sought to disprove it, but I was surprised to find out that it did in fact exist. So here's an electrical engineer studying telepathy from the standpoint of electronics and waves, radio waves, magnetics. I began my research and found out that telepathic communications operated on the principles that are strikingly similar to that of radio waves. Think about this with the mind control programs, HAARP transmitters, H-A-A-R-P, Gwen towers that they're building in secret, even in church steeples, so you can't see them, with all these radio wave transmitters, satellites in space, cell phones, iPads, laptop computers, wireless radar, radio transmitters, and airport radar, and so much more. What if they have some evil intent of depopulating the planet and microchipping the people involving all these electronics? Can't be good. That's what I say. It isn't exactly a radio wave, although it propagates in a similar fashion. to that of electromagnetic waves and possesses like properties. At least we forget that they put fluoride in the toothpaste and in the water, calcifies our pineal gland, which apparently suppresses our telepathic powers and other psychic abilities. Why would they do that intentionally? Makes people lethargic and have a lower IQ. Look up the Harvard University study on that. Fluoride causes lower IQ. And Germany used it in the prison camps, putting fluoride in the water so the prisoners would be lethargic, slow, and they needed less guards to guard them. Moving on, I found it all very exciting. I had discovered a whole brand new electromagnetic function that was not in any of the textbooks. My interest in the metaphysics had been launched. I noticed a particular phenomenon that was common to all the psychics that I worked with. Every day, at the same hour, their minds would be jammed. So at a particular hour, all the psychics in their Long Island, New York area, their psychic abilities wouldn't work. Whenever a 410, 420 megahertz cycle appeared on the air, they were jammed. So that's like a TV channel frequency or higher, like your microwave oven. HARP transmitters, Gwen towers. When the 410, 420 megacycle was off, the psychics would open back up again about 20 minutes later. It was obvious that this signal was greatly impeding the ability of the psychics. I decided to trace this signal. Placing a modified TV antenna on the roof of my car, I grabbed a VHF receiver and set out looking for the source of it. I tracked it right to Montauk Point. It was coming directly from a red and white radar antenna on the Air Force Base. So they were using this big SAGE antenna, radar antenna, and at a certain frequency it disabled the function of psychics. And much more, as we will see. So I strolled around the base. The first thing my eye caught was a high voltage equipment. So he's out there looking at this abandoned base. He sees this high voltage equipment. He was a collector of ham gear and radio equipment, and he wanted to buy this stuff. So he's investigating where this signal is coming from. Chapter 3, a visit to Montauk. Here we go. And I'm just reading a little bit here. Go buy the book. He also said that there had been a big experiment a year earlier. So there was a guard at the abandoned Air Force Base. So there was a big experiment a year earlier, and that everything had gone crazy. Apparently, he'd never gotten over it himself. So Preston Nichols goes out to this base, tracking down this frequency, find out it's abandoned, and the guard tells them some information. In fact, the man recognized me, but I had no idea who he was or what he was talking about. I did listen to his story. He said he had been a technician at the base. He spoke about a big beast appearing and frightening everyone away. So apparently, as human beings, people with certain psychic functions can manifest things. Helena Blavatsky, the Theosophist who wrote The Secret Doctrine, which we will go over, apparently in her book, when I read the book called The Magic Eyes, she would manifest cups and saucers and things. So there's more to this magic than we all know. This goes back thousands of years. All the kings and queens had magicians. There were burning witches at the stake. I showed you a little bit about dowsing in my previous video. There's more than what we know, and as I keep saying, it might behoove us to wake up and see what their plan is for the rest of us with this new world order and new age, and with their secrets of Mystery School of Babylon, occultic Kabbalah activities, witchcraft, and all the high technologies, electronics and such that they've invented, including their investigation into viruses and plagues, experimenting on we the people, vaccines. Recently, didn't a lot of doctors mysteriously die who were investigating the dangers of vaccines? Biologists dying, astronomers dying, military officers being let go from the military by the Obama administration. Preparations, it seems, for some big event and possibility martial law in the USA to bring about a new world order, new age. Something that should not happen. If we wake up and we can prevent it, it won't happen. Moving on here, I left the man at the base and found Brian. That was the psychic he brought with him. He was complaining that things weren't right and he was feeling some funny vibrations. I decided to ask him for a psychic reading right there. His reading was strangely similar to what the homeless man had just told me. He spoke of irregular weather patterns, mind control, and a vicious beast. He mentioned animals being affected, crashing through windows. Mind control was the main focus of Brian's reading. And I apologize for some of this material to be a little convoluted. I am skipping portions, only reading my highlighted portions. Not trying to do an audiobook, as I keep saying. 6 different people said that it snowed in the middle of August, so these experiments with these electronic radar transmitters could actually change the weather. If you believe all this, there were listings of hurricane force winds that came out of nowhere. Thunderstorms, lightning and hail were also reported under unusual circumstances. They would appear when previously there had been no meteorological evidence to expect such. There were all other unusual stories besides the weather. These included stories of animals coming into the town en masse and sometimes crashing through the windows. Moving on. So he went to speak to the chief of police, and there were strange happenings. For example, crimes would be committed in a 2-hour period. Then all of a sudden, nothing. So apparently these experiments with transmitting these signals would cause crime to be committed within a 2-hour period when they turn this thing on. And then apparently when they turn the signal off, everybody would return to normal. True or false? So I'll read on and we'll see. After the quiet, another 2-hour period of crime would occur. Teens were also reported to suddenly group in mass for 2 hours, then mysteriously separate and go their own ways. The chief couldn't account for it, but his statements lined up perfectly with what the psychic had indicated about mind control experiments. There's a couple pictures here of the Montauk Air Force Base Camp Hero and the Sage antenna. So think about it with these HARP systems. Think about it. Thought I'd just take a moment, look at a few pictures. Mind control, seduction and beyond. Compiled by high-level intelligence officers from around the world. I guess you can go buy the book. And you can see from the woman on the bottom there, they use sex, as we all know. And television. And who knows what they're putting on into the food. Look at the size of these people. The children. I just went to a party the other day for a friend of mine's little daughter, 3 years old. And she's addicted to the iPad and can punch the buttons and call up the different programs, children's cartoons and other things to watch. far more advanced than any kids I've ever seen. They are hooked into this stuff. And who are we trusting to create the programs? It's a serious study. Make no mistake about it. They know how the brain works. They have plans for us. Has anybody doubted the new age and the new world order? At this point in the game, 911, all those crisis actors, global warming convention over there in France, passing some kind of rules or treaty agreements that they're going to enforce on the rest of us in the world, including coming out of the United Nations microchipping everybody, as an excuse because of the terrorism of the people that they're pushing into our communities causing. It's all bizarre. Just go look up mind control images. There's something very satanic to it, as the satanic symbols you can see on TV. Even one of my favorite programs I watch, Chuck Norris and the Texas Rangers, it's just endless, the satanic symbolism. Apparently the Zionist Jewish people of Israel feel they have taken over the USA. They think the whole deal's all done. It's just a matter of the people waking up that they're worried about. Are aliens involved? It's an octopus. The octopus is also one of those symbols, as well as the spider, for the Zionist Illuminati Masonic monsters who plan on taking over the world, eliminating 80% of the population. The stuff that comes out of the White House is total fabrication and lies. They're going to give us either Hillary Clinton or Jeb Bush as the next president. How insane is that? If you just pay attention to the news, most people are not discerning. They don't think. They watch the news and they believe it. You can talk to a Democrat and they will tell you that the Republicans are evil, neocons, horrible, teabaggers, Then you go talk to a Republican. The liberals are evil, lazy, taking advantage of the system and all that. If they get ferociously vicious about it, they're mind controlled. Both parties are controlled by the same people. Come on. And they have these rooms with all these people, probably monitoring people, debunking people, propaganda people, working for the Pentagon. Trying to fool you and deceive you. They're doing a darn good job of it. The government knows how to do this. Mind control. They've been experimenting with this for years. The brave new world or enhancing human performance. The Underground Railroad Liberation Center. Modern slave. You gotta work, work, work. Get the money, pay the bills, car payment, new car. Take your girlfriend out to dinner, buy something for the wife, pay the mortgage payment, put the kids in school. You can never keep up. Never. Buy, buy, buy. You'll never have enough money. You'll never pay attention to what they're doing. The poor Arabs won't have a chance in the Middle East. They'll continue to be murdered and robbed because everybody else is looking at the football game or the birthday party or trying to make a buck. Yes? No? Everybody gets hooked on these shootings. They find out later on, if you go check on YouTube and other pundits, alternate websites, etc. There's evidence upon evidence like 911. It's all fraud. Mind control. There's something sinister looming in our future. It's already here. The shocking truth. You can look this stuff up. And there's one way to help yourself, and that is just to think for yourself. Logic dictates what's right and wrong. Why this craziness about transgenderism? Insane barrage of propaganda for gay marriage, which started out at a low percentage of approval and gradually increased every year by the government of the United Nations spending billions of dollars all over the world. Why? Exposing the manipulation of your mind. You are going to wake up. Did that work? Are you awake? Little sense of humor here. And who knows with these little kids, 3 years old like my friend's daughter, playing with the iPads and the TV and controlling it themselves. Parents don't even know what they're watching. What are these little characters saying to your kids? Imagine your child's mind. Can you see how it can be devilishly evil? In the studios, who are they employing? What are they telling them to say to the kids? You sit down and watch your kids' cartoons, you might be shocked. Look at the all-seeing eye on the top of her forehead. You don't even notice that stuff. And most people don't even notice when it's happening to them. It's all subliminal. That's how it works. You never know what's happening. All right, back to the book. Duncan arrives. I told you there were some interesting characters in this Montauk program called the Phoenix program, Rainbow program, Mind Control, MK Ultra. Duncan arrives. In November 1984, another man appeared at my lab door. His name was Duncan Cameron. we go with that Cameron name. He quickly became absorbed in a group of psychics I had working with me at the time. I would be talking to him. I would be taking him someplace to see if he recognized it. I drove him to the Montauk Air Force Base. He not only recognized it, he told me what the purpose was for each of the various buildings. When Duncan entered the transmitter building, and apparently they had crazy animals running through the town when they would turn the transmitter on. Just a picture in the book here. Maybe it drove the animals crazy, those radio frequencies. And then again, we got those HARP transmitters, Gwen towers, ground wave, satellite systems, and on and on. Wireless, radio, airport radar. What can they do to us? What are they doing to us? When Dunkard entered the transmitter building, he suddenly went into a trance and began spitting out information. When I brought him back to the lab, I applied techniques that I'd learned to help Duncan unblock his memories. Many different things were revealed, until finally a shocking program came straight to the awareness of Duncan's conscious mind. He blurted out that he had been programmed to come to my place, befriend me, and then kill me and blow up the entire lab. And how many times, if you've been paying attention to reality, has the CIA, FBI, other intelligence agencies all over the world, Mossad, MI6, whatever, used the beautiful women or other people to go into people's lives to cause harm and destruction? So I might advise people who do wake up, be careful about the people who do come into your life, who might be sent there. I have a suspicion that eventually, probably happening now, things are going to accelerate along these lines. And people in the know will be targeted. They call them TIs, targeted individuals. Look up the Miles Johnson Bases series. You should be able to find it. And he interviews a lot of people who are TIs, targeted individual, including the Arizona Wilder and David Icke interview on the internet, YouTube. Targeted individuals. So he blurted out he was there to befriend me and then kill me, blow up the lab. Duncan appeared to be more outraged at all of this than I was. He swore that he would no longer help those who had programmed him, and he has worked with me ever since. Further work with Duncan revealed even more bizarre information. He had been involved in the Philadelphia experiment. He said that he and his brother Edward served aboard the Eldridge as members of the crew. The puzzle was slowly clearing up. I found Duncan to be an extremely operational psychic, and through him I was able to confirm new information. There's another book here, I don't know if I have it. The Philadelphia Experiment and Other UFO Conspiracies by Brad Steger, with Al Biebeck and Sherry Hansen Steiger. So I'll have to look that up and see if I can get it and read it. When I do these investigations, I try to be thorough. On that marathon of books I did on Zionism and Talmudic Jewish people, I probably have twice that many books with more information I may read and go over in the future. It might be vitally important. Chapter 5. A Conspiracy Revealed. I visited Montauk many more times, often with different people who had been involved. A small group of us began to realize that we had stumbled across one of the highest security projects of the country had ever known. We figured we had better do something fast with this newfound knowledge. We didn't want to wind up dead, In July of 1986, we decided that we should go to the United States Psychotronics Association, the USPA, in Chicago and talk about it. I did, and it created an uproar. Remember Ron Hubbard and Dianetics, the Church of Scientology, Aleister Crowley, the evilest man alive, involved in all this mind control, satanic, demonic, interdimensional communication. There's a lot of supporting evidence out there. Anyways, this information included pictures of the orders given to the different military personnel, which we had found strewn about the base. So when they went to Chicago to the Psychotronics Association, they brought with them some evidence, paperwork they had found on the floor of the deserted base, Camp Hero. They took it to a senator. When the senator completed his investigation, he couldn't find any trace of government funding, no appropriations, no oversight committees, and no payments. Aha! Maybe they should be interviewing these Zionist Jewish folks running our government in Washington, D.C., and the banksters, and all these other occultic groups, higher level Freemasons and people out of the Vatican, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, with the Zionist people bent on a New World Order. We read a lot about the Talmudic Bible of theirs, and they call us non-Jews Goyim, and it says in their book, the best of the Goyim shall be killed. So anyways, it has a few documents dated 1981 January. Apparently this is just some kind of base bulletin board info sheet. And some more documents they found laying on the floor. Orders for the base, different things. Chapter 6. Project Moonbeam. And again, briefly, just reading some sentences. So if it does seem a little like there's something missing, there is, and you can go get the book on the internet. My memory improved while working with Duncan. I eventually realized that I must have been existing on 2 separate time tracks. So here they go with this multiple timelines that we live on, maybe. I can understand, like I said before, the third dimension, this material reality, where everything is solid. And then a spiritual reality, apparently the 4th dimension. And I suspect there's probably a higher level than that, and up. And probably to the point where you would be talking to the being called God, the creator of the lower dimension, this material world, which even the scientists say it is a created reality. Look at the design of the DNA and everything else. Somebody, something created this, designed the plants, kangaroos, foxes, bears, people. And in Genesis, it says it was God. Sounds all right to me. But people can believe what they want. But we are dealing with this threat to humanity right now, which seems to be omni-important. First, I could simply try to remember the other time track, though through regression or hypnosis. That would have been that Ron Hubbard stuff in Dianetics. And then he thought the third approach was that I was familiar with the theories of the Philadelphia experiment and was not intimidated by physics or electromagnetics. Moving on here. Again, I'm not reading very much. I also recalled earlier strange experiences that had occurred while working for BJM. He doesn't want to name the actual company he was working for, but it occurred to me, BJM, It's probably his disguised name for IBM. Who was involved in World War II designing the punch cards to round up the people that went to the prison camps. The undesired Jewish folks, whom the evil Jewish folks who were working with Hitler, the Zionists and banksters, wanted to get rid of because they weren't going along with the plan of the New World Order. It's my theory from my research. The bad Jews wanted to kill the evil Jews and other people. So Preston Nichols says that sometimes he would look at his hand and there would be a Band-Aid on his hand, and he didn't know where it came from. So apparently he figured out that he was being hypnotized and taken into other activities. I eventually remembered the reason I had sustained so many injuries to my hands. In my alternate reality, I frequently had moved different equipment. So apparently in this other hypnotized job he had, he was a project manager. And they didn't want his unhypnotized self to know. Like a dual personality thing. They must have concluded that the process was leaking and that I was somehow able to remember my alternate existence. At this point, all of what you've read was one huge, confused mess in my mind. I knew that I'd been working on 2 separate timelines, or maybe more. In fact, I discovered quite a bit, but it was more confused than clear. So I'm sure a lot of people right now would be thinking, well, the credibility's gone here. Preston Nichols must be out there. I was, however, able to make a major breakthrough in 1990. I had begun constructing a Delta T antenna on the roof of my laboratory. So a particular type of antenna caused some kind of psychic function. All I could figure out was that the Delta T antenna was storing up some time flux waves. As I was connecting it together. It kept pushing my mind a little bit with regard to the time reference. The antenna was stressing time, bending it, and enough bend was created so that I was subconsciously in 2 timelines. This was my memory breakthrough. Whatever the explanation, I was very pleased to have regained so much of my memory. I also believe my theory about the Delta T antenna is correct because the more time I spent working on the antenna, the more memories came back. By the end June of 1990, all of my memories had come back. And it says on the bottom here, I highlighted, a Delta T antenna is an octahedral antenna structure that can shift time zones. It is designed to bend time. Delta T equals delta time. Delta is used in science to show change, and T would be referred to the change in time. More about the nature of this antenna will be covered later in this book. All right, chapter 7. We're moving right along here. William Reich and the Phoenix Project. William Reich, however you say it. I know a little bit about William Reich. As you probably know, I've read some books. An interesting character, scientist, who invented, or discovered, didn't invent, he discovered, that all around us, as I've been saying in my videos, is this etheric force. Alright, so I went to one of my bookcases and grabbed a few books. Occult Ether Physics, Tesla's Hidden Space Propulsion System, and the Conspiracy to Conceal It by William Lane. A thin little book. Is there a secret physics with a different set of rules? hidden away from us earlier in this century by a powerful elite who fear the technology based on it will strip away their power and wealth and liberate us from their grip. Oh my, this sums up just about everything. Dynamite comes in small packages. And this little stick of scientific dynamite blows apart the pseudo-scientific myths and instills the truth. So here's a little picture in here on how an unconventional aircraft might fly. Some of Nikola Tesla's occult ether physics. The powers that be do have secrets they're keeping from the rest of us. Magnification exaggerated of the earth, direction of earth's movement through time. So I suppose I'll have to keep this book out and read it. I've got so many books. I haven't read them all. Here's some of Nikola Tesla's mechanics. So what can they do with these magnetic fields? Free energy. Just interesting stuff. Here's another book, Jacob's Rod, a translation from the French of a rare and curious work, 1693, on the art of finding springs, mines, and minerals. A little more on dowsing. I have many more books on dowsing than I've showed so far. Ancient pictures of people dowsing for water, minerals, mines, springs. Just to have an open mind and understand there's more to reality than most people know. Evil agenda of the secret government. Exposing Project Paperclip. That's where they shipped all those Germans over to the United States after World War II. And actually probably planned all this prior to the end of the war. The evil elites in charge knew that Germany was going to lose the war. Big conspiracy here. Who really won the war? Did they bring all those scientists to the United States to transfer the Third Reich to the United States to continue on with the goal of a New World Order? Exposing Project Paperclip and the underground UFO bases of Hitler's elite scientific corps. Emmy Award-winning producer makes shocking claims. Elements of the CIA and the secret government have imitated real alien abductions to convince public of interplanetary invasion so New World Order can rule the globe unchallenged. Hybrid zombie race being created through advanced genetic grooming inside Area 51 and other underground military installations. So they're faking this whole alien abduction UFO things. Do they have the technologies? That's what it says here. Because of the foreseeable threat of communist spread after World War II, the communists were actually the Zionist Jewish folks. They're the ones, the Bolsheviks, who took over Russia, created communism, brought it into China and other parts of the world. Secret alliances were formed between certain elements of U.S. intelligence with German agents who slowly infiltrated the U.S., military, government, and large corporations. Nearly 800 scientists were granted U.S. citizenship at several locations, including what is known as Area 51. German scientists started to work on radically different technology Radically different technology. And what are we reading about here? Radically different technology. That most Americans would consider out of this world. Some call it free energy. In addition to fancy flying machines, a fraction of the U.S. intelligence community worked with these relocated Nazi scientists on brainwashing techniques. Project Montauk. Biological warfare in order to control the American population should the need arise. That's what it says here. And we know they have Horus, the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill, whose mother was Isis. They're playing with us, people. They're playing with us. Evil agenda of the secret government. Every woman and child were rounded up for an unholy scientific experiment conducted by Nazi doctors and scientists. And they're continuing the same thing here in the United States. And apparently, down here in the South Pole, they've set up some bases, and one place is called New Berlin. It's funny how the mind works. When I was reading this book, and it mentioned this book, I didn't know I had it. I've got so many books. So while I was looking through my bookcase, I said, there it is, another book on the Philadelphia experiment. And I have another one coming in the mail. It says in the back of this book, in October 1943, the U.S. Navy secretly accomplished the teleportation of a warship from Philadelphia to a dark dock near Norfolk by successfully applying Einstein's unified field theory. The experiment also caused the crew and officers of the ship to become invisible, during which time they were sent to a time warp space into another dimension. The majority of the crew continued to experience devastating side effects for the rest of their lives. So I suppose before this marathon is over, I'll have to read this book and talk about it. What is reality? Now, let's not get confused here. I'm a Christian. I don't have any problem with it. We went over the Gospel of St. Mark. Jesus was casting out unclean spirits. He was prophesying, seeing into the future, telling them what would happen. They would have meetings with 4,000 people and only have 2 loaves of bread and 3 fish. He would look up and talk to God or whatever, and it would be multiplied for baskets of food that would feed the 4,000. So believing in miracles and something greater than what we all know is all plausible and seems real to me. FYI. I don't have a problem with it. I do have a problem with these New Age, New World Order folks trying to bring about some kind of satanic Luciferian cult promoting the gay marriage and other transgender, bisexual, pansexual, anything, pedophilia agenda. Yes? No. And I don't hate gay people. It never occurred to me to hate anybody. But forcing all this stuff on us and the children with the cartoons has pushed my buttons to say, no, that's wrong. Mind control is wrong. Advanced weaponry of microdust is wrong. Wrong. A mechanical analog to biomicron-sized mechanized dust which is distributed as an aerosol inhaled into the lungs. Dust mechanically bores into lung tissue and executes various pathological missions. A wholly new class of weaponry which is legal. Oh my. And they're doing it almost every day. Go outside and look up at your sky. What's the name of this video? Geoengineering, Jade Helm 2015 Sentient Mass. Look up this video and watch it. But yet the people are acting like sheeple. I point out to people standing there outside of a restaurant with me when I see a horrendous spraying going on, like this, and I'll say, hey buddy, look at that. And they'll go, what? I don't see anything. It's right there. And I have to explain it to them. But people don't want to know. They don't want to even care about the Muslims and Arabs who are Christians and atheists and Buddhists and Hindu. They're not all Islamic, but they're all being murdered and displaced, bombed to smithereens, robbed of their property, the land, their homes, the mineral resources, the oil. Yes? No. And who's doing it? The people who control our government. Here's I guess a zoom up on the sky at night. You can see the particles in the air. We're all breathing these particles. All right, back to this book. William Reich. The U.S. government began a weather control project in the late 1940s under the code name Phoenix. The information and technology for this came from Dr. Wilhelm Reich, an Australian scientist who had studied with Freud and Carl Jung. Weren't these guys psychiatrists? Psychologists? Psychiatrists? And they're the ones who inspired Wilhelm Reich into this ether stuff, physics. And then they have to get into the occult, witchcraft, and involve that, tie it in with electronics and chemicals dumped from the planes into these programs. Reich was known in part for the discovery of orgone energy, which is orgasmic or life energy. So I wonder what that has to do with sexual, satanic assault on people, called sexual magic. And then also sacrificing people, creating a hormone in the blood, a higher count. And then these witchcraft Illuminati folks drink the blood and get some kind of euphoric experience, maybe to communicate with demons and beings, and then drinking the blood and eating the flesh after they sacrifice people. Just saying, it's all tied in with the same thing. Some evil stuff going on. How many thousands, millions of people have been probably experimented on or sacrificed in horrific fashion by these people? How long will the human race stand for this? His experiments revealed orgone energy to be distinctly different from the ordinary electromagnetic energy. It's in this book here. It became very controversial with the powers that be when he reported curing cancer with his theories. They locked this guy up. He died because he was dealing with this etheric force, the stuff in the air. Orgone that you could accumulate. He made a box, a sheet of wood, a sheet of metal, a sheet of wood, a encased box, an orgone accumulator. And you would go sit in this box in a chair, and the orgone would accumulate and would cure you, make people healthier, much healthier. And apparently what causes diseases is something like an anti-orgone, what they call dead orgone. So if you get rid of the dead orgone with accumulated orgone, you can be healed. And Reich was persecuted by the food and health people, that'll come to in this book here, and put in prison. And the people, Department of, what is it called? Food and Health Government Organization, burned all his books. We'll read that here in a minute. At the turn of the century, scientists had embraced the Newtonian ether. This referred to the hypothetical invisible substance which was postulated to pervade all space and serve as a medium for light and radiant energy. And we all know on planet Earth there is a North Pole and a South Pole. And there is this magnetic field that flows from the North Pole to the South Pole, or vice versa. And you can hold a compass in the air, and the compass will align with that flux field. It's called a flux field. So we know in the center of the galaxy is a gigantic yellow ball, a gazillion times bigger than our sun, if you look at the picture of the galaxy, which probably has a North Pole and a South Pole, and has a big etheric field that goes all the way around the galaxy, which causes all those planets and star systems to be a galaxy. If you've ever seen a picture of a galaxy, go online and look at the Milky Way galaxy and ponder it for a minute. And imagine it as a gigantic situation of Earth with a North Pole and a South Pole and a flux field. And of course, Earth and the Sun are is in one of the bands surrounding this galaxy, with the yellow ball in the center, much huger than our Sun, this big compared to a small little sun. Not trying to do the 3-6 sign. Just saying, the Sun in the center of the galaxy is this big compared to that big of our Sun, the yellow Sun. So I would suspect that what holds the bands of the galaxy together is some kind of energy type of field, a flux field. So anyways, reading on here. An active and an enthusiastic go-getter would be considered to have plenty of orgone energy. So I suppose I have plenty of orgone energy. Whereas a complaining hypochondriac who wanted to die would have DOR energy, dead orgone. In the late 1940s, Reich contacted the government. Here's this guy contacting the government and told him he had developed technology that could take the violence out of storms. At that point, the government's technology team merged Reich's discoveries with their own weather monitors and produced what is known today as radio sound. 1940s. So Reich, William Reich, 1940s, he gave them a little balsa wood package, made out of balsa wood, that could be sent up in a balloon. According to witnesses, approaching thunderstorms actually split up and went around a test site on Long Island, so they could steer storms in 1940s. The government combined the technology of radiometrographs with Reich's DOR busting device and called it radio sound. It was developed until consistent effects on the weather could be reproduced. 1940. My next clue was to look for the specification sheet. So Preston Nichols was looking into these technologies for radio sound tube, which states that after the life expectancy was only about 2 hours. So they said the tubes that they would send up would burn out after 2 hours. It appears the government does not want the public to use these tubes, so they designed them to burn up when they send them up in a balloon within 2 hours. So when it crashes back down, the public can't use them. This is caused by back bombardment of the cathode, which would cool slowly and then destruct. If there is no secrecy involved here, why would the government design a battery to burn out a costly tube that would have to be replaced after a very short usage? Alright, moving on. The temperature sensor was useless for recording the temperature, but it did have a function. So these radio sound devices operate with a 403 megahertz transmitter that apparently had a 7 megahertz relaxation oscillator. We can't say exactly whether the radio sounds were just used to bust up violent storms, but the possibility was also there to build them up. The government abandoned the weather control aspect eventually. Yeah, right. You believe that? Go look outside. Changing the weather, if it were proven in court, would lead to many lawsuits. What is more intriguing than the weather aspect is the entire prospect of orgone and dead orgone energy, and what could be done with that. In theory, this means the government could have targeted communities with dead orgone. Oh my. Buildings or an entire populace and transmitted orgone or dead orgone energy. Have they advanced the technologies? Is that what the Gwen towers are for? Ground wave? HARP transmitters? Sky spraying? And the people are none the wiser. These type of activities have been reported in Russia for years. Not much press release coverage has been given to the U.S. effort in this regard. But there has been some activity. Whether it has been used harmfully or in war, I cannot answer. But the potential was there. 40 years of development could have made this a very refined technological device. Here's the spec sheet for the orgone tube. Alright, I want to try to wrap up this book here, this video. The Phoenix Project absorbs the rainbow. Project Rainbow. While the Phoenix Project was investigating the weather and the use of radio sounds, Project Rainbow resurfaced in 1940s. Project Rainbow, which was the code name for the operation that brought about the Philadelphia experiment, was going to continue research into the phenomenon encountered in the USS Eldridge. Dr. von Neumann was a mathematician who came to the United States from Germany. He also became a theoretical physicist and was noted for his very advanced concepts of space and time. As von Neumann began work on the Phoenix Project, he quickly learned that he was going to have to study metaphysics. All the stuff about psychic research, ghosts, demons, beings, the stuff, the world the Bible is made of, God, the devil, magic, occultism, Kabbalah, all the stuff these mystery school of Babylon folks are into, which some of it may be very beneficial to mankind, but as we all know, they're keeping these technologies secret from mankind and using it as a weapon to control and have power of us, including domination with money and all that, and making the people slaves, those they don't kill, with wars. Just saying, it is what it is. They know this stuff and we don't. The rainbow technology had dissolved the physical and biological structure of human beings. People were stuck in the bulkheads and changed beyond recognition in some cases. But it was the esoteric workings of the mind that had been affected first in each case. Von Neumann and his team spent about 10 years working out why human beings had troubles with electromagnetic fields that shifted them through different places and times. Yet again, might I remind us all, HARP systems, Gwen towers, ground wave, satellites in space, transmitters everywhere, wireless information, and if they can cause some kind of phase shift over an entire community, oh my, what can they do? They actually found out that humans are born what is known as a time reference point, a conception, an energy being is attached to the timeline, and we all start from that point. So when you're born, I guess this has something to do with astrology, you are attached to a particular timeline sequence. To understand this, it is necessary to view the energy being or soul as distinct, which I've been saying all along. We're biological bodies with a soul inside, from the physical body of the person concerned. Our whole reference as a physical and metaphysical being stems from the time reference, which actually resides within the electromagnetic background of our planet, which is the Schumann wave, is this frequency that everything is synced up on. If they can override that with a HARP transmission or something else, the CERN system, they could probably change everything in this reality as we know it. Destroy it all. Or maybe just a city or a country. And they think it's a little bit better than a nuclear holocaust, because after they kill everybody, the buildings and bridges are still there. The rainbow technology turns on and creates what be called an alternate or artificial reality. Those beings were literally removed from space and our universe as we know it. This accounts for the invisibility of the ship and the people on board in the Philadelphia experiment we just went over. And this other book I just discovered I had. The Phoenix Project was faced with solving the problem of bringing human beings into the bottle and eventually out again, so they could transfer the ship around, but they had problems with human beings. Some came when they came back into existence. Some were in and half out of the bulkhead. The other ones were driven mad mentally, while at the same time connecting them to their real-time reference that they would know as planet Earth. And like I said, if you will, support my research and my many years of collecting books and reading them before starting the videos a couple years ago. There is a donation button in the comment section. I could use some help. I want to take this to the next level. Thank you very much. Do people want to take it to the next level? Money helps get things done. What's it going to take to start exposing this even more? It takes money to go and travel, to do lectures, presentations, demonstrations down at the local park. You got my point. All right, the computer had to generate an electromagnetic background or phony stage that the physical being would synchronize with as well. If that wasn't done, the spirit and the physical body would go out of sync, thus resulting in insanity. There are 2 points to be brought out here: the physical being and the spiritual being. I keep saying that. None of this technology and this information upsets my belief in that we're spiritual beings, and the religion that I grew up with that's, as Jesus taught, treat others how you want to be treated. If Jesus wasn't even in the picture here, that would be my philosophy. Or the 10 Commandments that Moses brought down from the mountain that says, thou shalt not kill, and thou shalt not steal, commit adultery, bear false witness against your fellow man, or covet some things that other people have. It's 6 through 10. And the first 5, of course, is there's one God. Obey the guess don't work on the Sabbath. Respect the Sabbath. Don't blaspheme. Don't say bad things. Take God's name in vain. Have to rethink these here. No idols. And honor thy mother and father. 1 through 5. And if you do go look up the Ten Commandments, there's some slight variations to those explanations, I've noticed. There are 2 points to be brought out here, the physical being and the spiritual being. This is why the time reference, which lock in the spirit, and the electromagnetic background would lock in the body. The whole project started in 1948 and was finally developed in 1967. Remember the Vietnam War and the introduction to LSD and all kinds of drugs into the hippie culture in the USA? All a plan. Rabbi Marvin Antelman, writing the 2 books to eliminate the opate, Volume 1 and Volume 2. The opate means the belief in God. They wanted to eliminate people's belief in God. All a plan. They know that that psychic power and the belief in God is powerful. They know that. So there are some evil, dark forces, demonic beings who want to control Earth and our souls. That one word I learned, soul snatching, comes to mind in the Jewish Zionist material I went over. And we know that those ADL, the Anti-Defense League of the Jewish People, and all those other ones, they don't want this information out there. They want to destroy anybody who exposes the plan for the New Age and the New World Order, and expose them for running the banks and the financial systems, manipulating everything and destroying people's lives. Those are the facts from my research and the many books. They were told that the consciousness of man could definitely be affected by electromagnetics, and additionally that it would be possible to develop equipment that could literally change the way a person thinks. Not surprisingly, Congress said no. They were concerned that if the wrong people got a hold of this technology, that they themselves could lose their minds and be controlled. So the Congress said no back then. This is a very valid concern, and the word was given by 1969 to disband the entire project. And we know that they didn't disband it, as we have acknowledged in the research I've been doing with the videos. These people who are controlled by the Zionists, and many of them the Zionists themselves, are running this New World Order program under the guise of global warming, sustainability, biodiversity, and all that, terrorism, threats of plagues, threats of earthquakes, threats of planetary bodies crashing into Earth, threats of pole shifts. It never ends. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.